The penthouse elevator dinged softly, but Logan Blackman's enhanced hearing caught something else. His father's labored breathing and an unfamiliar omega scent threading through the sterile air of the family estate. Logan stepped out of the elevator, his Italian leather shoes silent on the marble floor. 3 days early. The Tokyo deal had wrapped up faster than expected, leaving him with a bitter taste of victory and an inexplicable need to be home. He'd dismissed his driver and taken the private elevator straight to the 68th floor, expecting to find his father alone in his wheelchair, surrounded by the usual parade of sterile, efficient nurses who treated the once mighty Alpha like a medical case rather than a person. Instead, he heard laughter. His father's laughter. Logan froze in the hallway, his briefcase suddenly heavy in his hand. When was the last time he'd heard that sound? Before the diagnosis, certainly. Before the treatments that had stripped his father's wolf of its strength, leaving behind a shadow of the Alpha who had built Black Moon Industries from nothing. Just a few more steps, Mr. Black Moon, came a soft voice, warm and encouraging. Female. Young. Definitely not one of the nurses. You're doing so well today. Logan's jaw tightened. Who the hell was in his father's private quarters? The security team knew better than to let unauthorized personnel up here, especially when Logan was away. His Alpha instincts bristled at the territory violation, at the thought of some stranger taking advantage of his father's vulnerability. He moved toward the living room, his enhanced hearing picking up the shuffle of feet, the creak of a wheelchair, and that voice again, humming now, something soft and melodic that seemed to settle the very air around it. Logan rounded the corner and stopped dead. His father, Thomas Black Moon, former Alpha of the most powerful pack in the city, the man who hadn't stood on his own in 8 months, was on his feet. Actually standing, with only the gentle support of a small woman's hands on his arms. His face, gone from chemotherapy but peaceful in a way Logan hadn't seen in years, was turned toward her with something dangerously close to paternal affection. The woman was young, maybe 23, with glossy black hair pulled back in a simple ponytail and wearing the neat gray uniform of the housekeeping staff. She was tiny compared to his father's 6-foot frame, but she held him steady with a confidence that spoke of practice, as if this wasn't the first time she'd helped him stand. That's it, she murmured, her voice carrying notes of genuine pride and warmth. 5 steps today. Tomorrow we'll try for 6. Logan's chest constricted. When was the last time anyone had spoken to his father with such unguarded kindness? The nurses were professional, competent, but clinical. This woman, this Omega, he could smell her nature now. Spoke to Thomas Black Moon like he was still whole, still worthy of gentleness rather than mere medical maintenance. You spoil an old wolf, Lily, his father said, and there was actual warmth in his voice, actual life. Lily. Logan filed the name away, though something about it seemed to resonate in his chest in a way that made no sense. Nonsense, she replied, helping him settle back into his wheelchair with the kind of care usually reserved for something precious. You're stronger than you think. We just have to remind your body of that fact. She moved to tuck a blanket around his father's legs, humming again, and Logan found himself transfixed by the simple domesticity of the moment. There was nothing calculated about her movements, nothing performed. This was genuine care, the kind that couldn't be bought or professionally mandated. His alpha wolf stirred restlessly, caught between territorial anger and something else entirely. She was touching his father without permission, inserting herself into their family space, disrupting the careful order Logan had established. But Thomas looked happy. More than happy, he looked hopeful, and Logan couldn't remember the last time hope had been allowed in this house. Shall I make you some of that tea you like? Lily asked, already moving toward the small kitchenette that Logan kept stocked for his father's comfort. The one with the honey and... That won't be necessary. Logan's voice cut through the peaceful atmosphere like a blade. Both his father and the Omega startled, turning toward him, and Logan got his first clear view of her face. She was beautiful in an understated way, with delicate features and dark eyes that went wide with surprise and then something that might have been fear. Good. She should be afraid. She'd overstepped in ways she couldn't possibly understand. But then she lifted her chin slightly, a gesture that should have been submissive but somehow wasn't, and Logan caught her scent full force for the first time. The world tilted. Omega, yes, but not just any Omega. Unclaimed. Unmated. And underneath the gentle lavender of her nature, something else. Something that hid his alpha wolf-like recognition, like a key sliding into a lock he hadn't known existed. Coming home. The thought slammed into him with such force that he actually took a step back, his briefcase hitting the floor with a sharp crack that made both his father and the Omega jump. "Logan," Thomas said, his voice carefully neutral in the way it got when he was trying to head off one of his son's territorial displays. "You're back early." Logan couldn't answer. He was too busy trying to process what his wolf was telling him, the insistent hum of recognition that made his chest tight and his breath short. This wasn't possible. He didn't do this, didn't feel this immediate, overwhelming pull toward anyone, especially not some Omega maid who'd infiltrated his family's most private space. But Lily Chen. Because somehow he knew that was her full name now, as if his wolf had been waiting for her specifically, stood there in his father's living room, her small hands clasped in front of her like she was bracing for a storm, and Logan felt something fundamental shift in the carefully controlled world he'd built around himself. She wasn't just any Omega. She was his. The realization should have been impossible, but Logan's alpha wolf knew with bone-deep certainty what his logical mind was still scrambling to process. This small, gentle woman who'd somehow brought light back into his dying father's eyes was his mate. And she had no idea what that meant. Chapter 2. The silence stretched between them like a live wire, crackling with tension that made the hair on Logan's arms stand on end. His father sat in his wheelchair, alert in a way Logan hadn't seen in months, while the Omega, Lily, remained perfectly still, her chin still lifted in that maddening display of quiet defiance. "You're fired," Logan said finally, his voice cutting through the air with the sharp precision he used in boardrooms. "Whatever arrangement you have here ends now." "Logan," his father started, but Logan held up a hand, his eyes never leaving Lily's face. "I don't know what game you're playing," he continued, taking a step closer to her. His alpha pheromones were already spiking, filling the room with the scent of dominance and territorial aggression. "But taking advantage of a sick old man." "I'm not taking advantage of anyone," Lily interrupted, her voice steady despite the way her hands trembled slightly at her sides. The sweet scent of Omega submission should have been flooding the air by now, but instead Logan caught only the faintest hint of it, overwhelmed by something that smelled like steel. Determination. It was impossible. Omegas didn't stand up to angry alphas, especially not unclaimed ones facing a territorial display this aggressive. But here she was, meeting his stare with those dark eyes that held no fear, only a quiet strength that made his wolf pace restlessly beneath his skin. "She's not taking advantage," Thomas said, his voice carrying more authority than Logan had heard from him in almost a year. "I hired her myself, 2 months ago." Logan's head snapped toward his father. "Through what agency?" "I personally vetted every service." "No agency." Thomas's weathered hands gripped the arms of his wheelchair, and Logan was startled to see actual muscle definition in his forearms, strength that hadn't been there during Logan's last visit. "I hired her privately." "That's impossible. The security protocols alone." "Don't treat me like an invalid," his father snapped, and suddenly Logan was looking at a shadow of the alpha who had built an empire from nothing. "I may be sick, but I'm still capable of making my own decisions about my own care." Logan felt his control slipping, his alpha nature bristling at being challenged in what should have been his territory. "You had no right to bring an unknown Omega into this house without my knowledge." "The security risks alone." "Security risks?" Lily's voice was soft, but it carried an edge that made Logan's wolf sit up and take notice. "Mr. Black Moon, your father has been alone up here for months. The nurses come in, check his vitals, administer medications, and leave. They treat him like a medical case file, not a person. When was the last time you visited him yourself?" The question hit Logan like a physical blow. He could feel his father's eyes on him, could smell the sudden shift in the old alpha's scent from authority to something that might have been disappointment. "I've been busy," Logan said through gritted teeth, his pheromones spiking higher. The air in the room was becoming thick with his aggression, and he could see Lily's pupils dilating slightly as her Omega nature responded involuntarily to his display. But still, she didn't back down. "Busy building an empire," she said quietly, "while your father sits here wondering if you'll make it to his funeral." The words hung in the air like a slap. Logan felt his careful control shatter completely, his alpha nature surging to the surface with enough force that his father actually wheeled his chair back a few inches. The scent of dominance flooded the room, so thick it was almost visible, and Logan heard Lily's sharp intake of breath as her Omega physiology responded against her will. Her sense spiked, not just submission, but something deeper, more primal. The biological response of an Omega to an Alpha's aggressive display. Her breathing quickened, her cheeks flushed, and Logan could actually see her fighting against the instinctive urge to bare her neck to him. But instead of dropping her eyes, instead of stepping back or showing the deference that every cell in her body was screaming at her to display, Lily Chen looked him straight in the eye and said, "He talks about you constantly. Every day. He's so proud of what you've built, what you've accomplished. But he misses his son. He misses the boy who used to sit with him and plan the future of the pack, who used to care more about family than profit margins." Logan felt like she'd reached into his chest and squeezed his heart with her bare hands. The aggression in his scent faltered, confusion bleeding through the dominant display. "He's dying," Logan said roughly, hating how the words sounded even as he spoke them. "There's nothing." "Is he?" Lily asked, and something in her tone made Logan's wolf go completely still. "Because from where I'm standing, he looks stronger than he has in months. He's been walking, Mr. Black Moon. Actually walking. When was the last time anyone told you that?" Logan's eyes snapped to his father, who suddenly looked uncomfortable, his gaze shifting away from his son's face. "The doctors said," Logan began. "The doctors said a lot of things," Thomas interrupted. "But Lily's not a maid, son. I'm a former pre-med student," Lily said, her voice quiet but clear. "I lost my scholarship when my mother got sick and I had to drop out to care for her. But I know enough to recognize when someone's being undertreated. Your father wasn't dying, Mr. Black Moon. He was being slowly killed by neglect and medications that were suppressing his wolf's natural healing abilities rather than supporting them." Logan felt the bottom drop out of his world. "What are you talking about?" "The cocktail of medications he was on," Lily continued, pulling a small notebook from her pocket. "Immunosuppressants, muscle relaxants, sedatives. All of them designed to keep him weak and compliant. I've been gradually reducing them while introducing supplements that support shifter physiology. That's why he's getting stronger." "You're not a doctor," Logan said, but even as the words left his mouth, he could see the truth of what she was saying in his father's improved posture, in the clarity of his eyes. "No, I'm not," Lily agreed. "But I know enough to recognize when someone's medications are making them sicker instead of better. And I know enough to see that your father's wolf was being systematically suppressed." Logan turned to his father, his mind reeling. "Is this true?" Thomas's jaw worked silently for a moment before he nodded slowly. "The doctors Dr. Marcus recommended, they said the medications were necessary to manage the pain, to keep me comfortable." But Lily started asking questions, started researching the interactions between the drugs and shifter physiology. "Dr. Marcus?" Logan's blood ran cold. His uncle had been the one to recommend the medical team, had been handling the arrangements while Logan dealt with the business side of his father's illness. "Uncle Marcus chose your doctors?" "He said you were too busy," Thomas said quietly. "That he wanted to spare you the burden of managing my care on top of everything else." Logan felt his wolf surge with a rage so pure it nearly drove him to his knees. His Uncle Marcus, his father's business partner, his father's brother, the man Logan had trusted implicitly with his family's welfare while he focused on maintaining their empire. "Where are these medications now?" Logan asked, his voice deadly quiet. Lily moved to a small cabinet near his father's bed, returning with a plastic bag filled with prescription bottles. "I've been tapering him off slowly to avoid withdrawal complications. But Mr. Black Moon, some of these combinations, they could have killed him." Logan took the bag with hands that shook slightly, reading the labels. High-dose benzodiazepines. Immunosuppressants that had no business being prescribed to a shifter. Muscle relaxants in dosages that would have been excessive for a human twice his father's size. How long has Marcus been managing your care? Logan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. 6 months, Thomas said. Ever since the diagnosis. 6 months. 6 months of Logan being told his father was dying, of being encouraged to focus on securing the family business while Marcus handled the medical side. 6 months of his father wasting away under the care of doctors who were slowly poisoning him. He's been lying to both of us, Logan said, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. There never was a terminal diagnosis, was there? His father's silence was answer enough. Logan felt his control snap entirely. His alpha nature exploded outward, filling the room with such aggressive pheromones that both his father and Lily gasped. But this time, the aggression wasn't directed at them, it was focused on the man who had betrayed them both, who had been slowly murdering his father while positioning himself to take over both the pack and the business. I'm going to kill him, Logan snarled, his voice carrying the deep resonance of his wolf. I'm going to tear his throat out with my bare hands. Logan, his father said sharply, and there was enough alpha authority in his voice to cut through his son's rage. Think. If Marcus has been planning this for 6 months, he's not going to be unprepared for your reaction. You need to be smart about this. Logan forced himself to breathe, to pull his wolf back from the edge of violence. His father was right. Marcus had been playing a long game, and Logan had walked right into it, too focused on the business to see what was happening right under his nose. We need proof, Logan said finally, his mind already shifting into the strategic thinking that had made him so successful in business. Documentation. Medical records. Something that will hold up legally and with the Pack Council. I kept copies of everything, Lily said quietly. The original prescriptions, the medical notes, everything. I knew something wasn't right, so I started documenting it all. Logan turned to look at her, this small Omega who had somehow seen through his uncle's deception when he, an alpha with every resource at his disposal, had been completely blind to it. Why? He asked. Why did you risk so much for a stranger? Lily's eyes softened, and for the first time since he'd walked into the room, Logan caught a hint of that Omega gentleness that had drawn him so strongly before. Because he's not a stranger, she said simply. He's your father. And because someone needed to care about whether he lived or died as more than just a business transaction. The words hit Logan harder than any physical blow could have. She was right. While he'd been focused on protecting the family empire, he'd forgotten to protect the family itself. While he'd been building a legacy, he'd been losing the man who had made it all possible. I'm sorry, he said, the words directed at both of them but his eyes on his father. I should have been here. I should have seen. You're here now, Thomas said, and there was forgiveness in his voice that Logan wasn't sure he deserved. The question is, what are we going to do about Marcus? Logan looked at his father, strong and alert in a way he hadn't been in months, then at Lily, who had risked everything to save a man she barely knew simply because it was the right thing to do. His wolf stirred restlessly, recognizing not just the threat they faced, but the pack bond that was forming in this room, father, son, and the Omega who had somehow become central to both their lives. We're going to destroy him, Logan said quietly. But first, we're going to make sure he can never hurt this family again. As if summoned by his words, Logan's phone buzzed with a text message. He glanced at the screen and felt his blood turn to ice. The message was from Marcus, sorry to hear about Thomas taking a turn for the worse. The doctors think it might be time to discuss final arrangements. I'll be by tomorrow to handle the details. Logan showed the message to his father and Lily, watching as understanding dawned on both their faces. Marcus wasn't just planning to let Thomas die, he was planning to accelerate the timeline. He's coming tomorrow, Logan said grimly. Which means we have less than 24 hours to prepare. But as he looked at his father's determined expression and caught Lily's scent, no longer just Omega submission, but something fiercer, more protective, Logan felt his wolf settle with grim satisfaction. Let Marcus come. He would find the Black Moon pack ready for war. And this time, Logan wouldn't be fighting alone. Chapter 3. Dawn was breaking over the city skyline when Logan made his decision. He sat at his father's bedside, watching the older man sleep peacefully for the first time in months, while Lily moved quietly around the room, checking vitals and adjusting medications with the precision of someone who actually knew what she was doing. I need to know if I can trust you, Logan said quietly, not wanting to wake his father. Lily paused in her movements, a small bottle of supplements in her hands. You already know the answer to that. She was right. Despite every alpha instinct screaming at him to handle this alone, to protect what was his without involving someone who could become a liability, Logan found himself needing, to trust her. She'd already proven herself by saving his father's life. But what they were about to face would require more than medical knowledge. Marcus isn't just trying to steal the company, Logan said, his voice barely above a whisper. He's been systematically positioning himself to take over pack leadership. When my father dies, the alpha inheritance would normally pass to me, but if Marcus can prove I'm unfit to lead, he becomes alpha by default, Lily finished, her dark eyes sharp with understanding. The business, the pack territories, everything. Everything, Logan confirmed. Which means he'll do whatever it takes to eliminate any threats to that plan. As if summoned by their conversation, Logan's phone buzzed insistently. He glanced at the screen and felt his stomach drop. Marcus. At 6 a.m. Logan, thank God, his uncle's voice was perfectly pitched with concern when he answered. I've been trying to reach you all night. There's been a terrible development. What kind of development? Logan's voice was carefully neutral, but his free hand clenched into a fist. It's about that girl. The one you've been letting care for your father. I'm afraid there's been some very disturbing information brought to light. Logan met Lily's eyes across the room, watching as her expression shifted from confusion to alarm. What are you talking about, Marcus? The police received an anonymous tip about possible elder abuse. When they searched her apartment, they found, well, let's just say the evidence is quite damning. Stolen prescription medications, cash that clearly belongs to your father, personal items from the estate. Logan, I think she's been taking advantage of Thomas's condition for months. The line went quiet except for Marcus's carefully measured breathing. Logan could practically hear his uncle's satisfaction through the phone. Where is she now? Logan asked, though he already knew the answer. In custody, I'm afraid. The charges are quite serious. Elder abuse, theft, fraud. Given her status as an undocumented Omega with no pack protection, I suspect deportation proceedings will begin immediately. Logan felt his wolf surge with protective rage, but he forced his voice to remain calm. Undocumented? That's impossible. I had her background checked. Did you? Marcus's voice carried just a hint of smugness. Or did you just assume? I'm afraid her documentation was all falsified. Quite professionally done, actually. She's been living under an assumed identity for years. Across the room, Lily had gone completely still, her face pale as she stared at Logan's phone with something that looked like recognition. And fear. I'll handle this, Logan said curtly. I'm sure you'll try, Marcus replied, and now his satisfaction was unmistakable. But Logan, you need to understand, this goes beyond simple theft. The board is extremely concerned about your judgment in this matter. Allowing an unknown, undocumented Omega access to sensitive family information, to the estate itself, there are questions about your fitness to lead. There it was. The real threat. I'll be in touch, Logan said and ended the call. The silence that followed was deafening. Logan looked at Lily, who was staring at the floor with the expression of someone whose worst fears had just been confirmed. How much of that was true? He asked quietly. The part about my documentation, she said without looking up. It's complicated. Complicated how? Before Lily could answer, the bedroom door burst open. Not Marcus, Logan would have scented him coming, but three men in dark suits with the rigid posture of private security. Behind them, Logan caught a whiff of Marcus's cologne. "Logan Black Moon," the lead man said, flashing credentials that looked official enough. "We need to speak with you regarding charges of elder abuse and conspiracy." "Get out of my father's room," Logan snarled, his alpha pheromone spiking aggressively. But these men weren't shifters, they were human, immune to his territorial display. "Sir, we have a warrant for your arrest as an accessory to..." The man never finished the sentence. Logan heard his father's wheelchair before he saw it, Thomas rolling himself into view with more strength and authority than Logan had seen from him in almost a year. "There are no charges," Thomas said, his voice carrying the absolute command of an alpha who had ruled a pack for decades. "And there will be no arrests in my home without proper justification." The security team hesitated, clearly not expecting to face a coherent, commanding presence from someone they'd been told was dying and incapacitated. From behind them, Marcus finally appeared, his expression perfectly crafted to show concern and regret. "Thomas, please don't upset yourself. These gentlemen are just doing their job." "Their job?" Thomas's voice was dangerously quiet. "In my private residence, threatening my son and the woman who saved my life?" "The woman who's been stealing from you," Marcus said gently. "Thomas, I know this is difficult, but the evidence is quite clear." Logan watched his uncle's performance with growing admiration for the man's skill at manipulation. Marcus had positioned himself as the concerned brother, the one trying to protect the family from a dangerous outsider. To anyone who didn't know the truth, it would be completely convincing. But Logan did know the truth. And so did his father. "What evidence?" Thomas asked. Marcus nodded to one of his security team, who produced a tablet showing photographs. "Prescription medications found in her apartment, medications prescribed specifically for you. Cash taken from your personal safe. Family jewelry, including your mother's ring." Logan felt his heart sink as he looked at the images. The evidence was damning and clearly planted, but it would be nearly impossible to prove in court. "She's a thief, Thomas," Marcus continued, his voice heavy with regret. "I know you've grown fond of her, but..." "She's my mate," Logan said quietly. The words fell into the room like stones into still water. Everyone, his father, Marcus, the security team, went completely silent. "I'm sorry?" Marcus's carefully controlled expression cracked slightly. "You heard me," Logan said, his voice gaining strength. "Lily Chen is my mate. Which means any charges against her are charges against the future alpha female of this pack." It was a desperate gambit, and not entirely true. They hadn't actually mated, but Logan's wolf recognized the rightness of it even as his logical mind questioned the wisdom of showing his hand so early. Marcus's eyes narrowed. "That's impossible. She's not even..." "Not even what, Marcus?" Thomas interrupted, his voice carrying a warning that made even the human security team step back slightly. Marcus seemed to realize he was on dangerous ground. "Nothing. I just..." "Logan, you barely know this woman. To claim her as mate based on a few days of acquaintance..." "I know enough," Logan said firmly. "And as my mate, she's under the protection of this pack and this family." One of the security men stepped forward. "Sir, with respect, pack law doesn't supersede federal law. The charges still stand." Before Logan could respond, his phone rang. His lawyer. "Mr. Black Moon," the man's voice was tense. "I need to speak with you immediately. There's been a development in your father's medical situation." Logan put the call on speaker, watching Marcus's face carefully. "What kind of development?" "The medical board has received a complaint about unlicensed medical practice. Apparently, someone has been administering unauthorized treatments to your father, potentially endangering his life. There's talk of an emergency conservatorship being granted to ensure his proper care." Logan felt the trap closing around them. Marcus had played this perfectly, frame Lily for theft and elder abuse, position Logan as an unfit heir who allowed it to happen, and then swoop in as the concerned brother who needed to take control to protect everyone involved. "Who filed the complaint?" Logan asked, though he already knew. Marcus Black Moon, on behalf of the family's best interests. Logan met his uncle's eyes across the room. Marcus wasn't even trying to hide his satisfaction now. I'll need to take my brother somewhere safe while this is sorted out, Marcus said to the security team. Somewhere with proper medical supervision. No, Thomas said firmly. I'm not going anywhere. Thomas, please be reasonable. Your health. My health has improved dramatically since Lily began caring for me, Thomas said, his voice carrying the absolute authority of an alpha making a decree. I will not be moved, and I will not be separated from the woman who saved my life. Logan watched the standoff develop, his mind racing through options. Marcus had played this brilliantly, but he'd made one mistake. He'd assumed Thomas would be too weak to fight back. Gentlemen, Logan said to the security team, I think there's been a misunderstanding. My uncle seems to believe he has authority over this household and my father's care. But last I checked, my father was still very much alive and capable of making his own decisions. Logan, Marcus's voice carried a warning. Don't make this more difficult than it needs to be. Difficult for who? Logan stepped closer to his uncle, letting his alpha pheromone spike aggressively. For you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been working very hard to create a situation that benefits only you. The security team was looking increasingly uncomfortable, clearly recognizing that they'd walked into a family power struggle that was beyond their expertise. Sir, one of them said to Logan, we still need to take the woman into custody. Logan looked around the room for Lily and felt his stomach drop. She was gone. Marcus noticed his expression and smiled. I'm afraid she won't get far. The building is surrounded. But as if summoned by his words, the fire alarm began blaring throughout the penthouse. Emergency lighting activated, and Logan could hear the sounds of the building's evacuation procedures kicking in. Clever girl, Thomas murmured, and Logan caught a hint of admiration in his father's voice. Through the confusion of the alarm and the security team trying to coordinate with their backup units, Logan heard his father's whispered words, she's stronger than she lets on, son. Much stronger. Before Logan could ask what that meant, one of the security men was speaking urgently into his radio. Subject has left the building. Repeat, subject has left the building. She triggered the fire suppression system and used the emergency evacuation as cover. Marcus's carefully controlled expression finally cracked completely, revealing the cold fury beneath. Find her, he snarled. Now. But Logan was already moving, his wolf surging with protective instincts and something else, pride. Lily had outmaneuvered professional security operatives and escaped what should have been an impossible situation. Where would she go? Marcus demanded, grabbing Logan's arm as he headed for the door. Logan shrugged off his uncle's grip, his eyes cold. I have no idea. But when I find her, Marcus, we're going to have a very long conversation about exactly what you've been doing to my father. Logan, wait, Thomas called out, his voice urgent. Be careful. If she's who I think she is. Who do you think she is? Logan asked. His father's eyes were grave. Someone Marcus has been hunting for a very long time. 3 hours later, Logan was in his downtown office, trying to coordinate legal defenses and track down Lily through every resource at his disposal, when his phone rang. Unknown number. Logan? Lily's voice was strained but determined. I need you to listen very carefully. Your father is in immediate danger. Where are you? Logan demanded. Are you safe? That doesn't matter right now. Marcus isn't just trying to steal your company or your pack. He's planning to kill your father tonight. The medications I've been giving him have been counteracting a slow-acting poison, but Marcus just increased the dosage. Your father has maybe 6 hours before the toxins reach fatal levels. Logan felt his world tilt. How do you know this? Because I broke into Marcus's office. Logan, he's been planning this for 20 years. The attack on my pack when I was 3, the systematic elimination of rival alpha bloodlines, all of it, it was Marcus. He's been removing threats to his eventual takeover of pack leadership, and my family was one of them. Your family? Logan's voice was barely a whisper. My father was Alexander Chen, Alpha of the Silver Moon Pack. Marcus murdered him and my mother, burned our territory to the ground. I survived because a pack member got me out, but Marcus has been hunting the survivors ever since. Logan felt the pieces clicking into place. That's why you were living under false documentation. Yes. But Logan, none of that matters right now. What matters is that Marcus knows I figured out his plan. He's at your father's apartment right now, and he's not planning to wait for the poison to do its work. The line went quiet except for the sound of Lily's labored breathing, as if she were running. Lily, where are you? On my way to save your father. But Logan, if something happens to me, you need to know. The antidote is in the blue bottle in your father's medicine cabinet. Give him the whole vial, and don't let Marcus near him. Lily, wait. But she'd already hung up. Logan was out of his office and heading for the elevator before the phone hit his desk. As the floors flew by, his mind raced through everything Lily had just revealed. She wasn't just some Omega who'd stumbled into their lives, she was the daughter of an Alpha, a survivor of Marcus's long campaign to eliminate threats to his power. And she was walking directly into his uncle's trap. The penthouse was eerily quiet when Logan burst through the elevator doors 20 minutes later. Too quiet. His enhanced hearing picked up voices from his father's bedroom, his father's voice, weak and strained, and Marcus's, smooth and satisfied. And underneath it all, Logan caught a scent that made his wolf surge with protective fury. Lily's scent, but wrong somehow. Stressed. Afraid. He moved silently down the hallway, his heart pounding as Marcus's voice became clearer. I have to admit, I'm impressed, his uncle was saying. 22 years I've been looking for Alexander Chen's daughter, and she's been right here under my nose for 2 months. Leave her alone, Thomas's voice was weak but defiant. She's under pack protection. Marcus laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. Pack protection? Thomas, in about 10 minutes you'll be dead, and Logan will be facing murder charges as an accessory. There won't be a pack to protect anyone. Logan reached the doorway and stopped, his blood turning to ice at what he saw. His father was in his wheelchair, but he was pale and shaking, clearly fighting the effects of whatever Marcus had given him. Lily knelt beside him, her hands glowing with a soft silver light as she tried to counteract the poison, but Logan could see the strain on her face. And Marcus stood over them both, a syringe in his hand that gleamed with something that looked like liquid fire. Concentrated wolfsbane, Marcus said, noticing Logan's gaze. 1 injection and even an Alpha dies within minutes. Though I suspect your little Omega friend here might last a bit longer, given her heritage. Let them go, Marcus, Logan said, stepping into the room. His voice was deadly calm, but his wolf was straining against his control, demanding violence. Or what? Marcus asked, not even looking at him. You'll challenge me? Logan, you're about to be arrested for conspiracy and murder. Even if you survived a challenge, the Pack Council would never accept a criminal as Alpha. Maybe not, Logan agreed. But they'll accept whoever kills the man who murdered their previous Alpha and tried to poison their current one. Marcus's eyes narrowed. You don't have proof of anything. Actually, Lily said quietly, still kneeling beside Thomas but looking directly at Marcus, I have everything. Financial records, medical documentation, communications with the doctors you bribed. All of it uploaded to a secure server with instructions to release everything to the Pack Council and the FBI if anything happens to me. For the first time since Logan had entered the room, Marcus looked genuinely concerned. You're bluffing. Lily smiled, and for the first time Logan saw something in her expression that reminded him she was Alpha-born, that she carried the blood of Pack leaders in her veins. Try me, she said simply. The silence stretched between them, thick with tension and the scent of impending violence. Logan could see Marcus calculating odds, weighing options. Finally, his uncle smiled. Very well. But you should know, dear niece. Yes, I know exactly who you are, that even if you've managed to gather evidence against me, it won't matter. Because dead Omegas don't testify. Marcus raised the syringe, and Logan moved. But Lily moved faster. The silver light that had been flickering around her hands exploded outward, filling the room with power that Logan had never felt from an Omega. Marcus stumbled backward, his eyes wide with shock and something that might have been fear. Impossible, he breathed. You're supposed to be powerless. Omega. Broken. Lily rose to her feet, and Logan felt his world shift as he truly saw her for the first time. The gentle caregiver was gone, replaced by something fierce and powerful and undeniably alpha. You killed my parents, she said, her voice carrying harmonics that made the windows rattle. You destroyed my pack. You've spent 20 years hunting survivors, including children. The silver light intensified, and Logan realized what he was seeing. Not Omega healing powers, but Alpha command, filtered through someone who had learned to hide their true nature so completely that even he had been fooled. You're not Omega, he breathed. Lily looked at him, her eyes bright with power and pain and something that might have been apology. No. I'm not. Marcus laughed, but there was hysteria in the sound now. Alexander Chen's daughter. The lost Alpha heir. Do you have any idea how many people I've killed looking for you? All of them unavenged, Lily said simply. Until now. She stepped toward Marcus, power radiating from her small frame, and Logan's uncle raised the syringe like a weapon. One step closer and I inject your precious Thomas, Marcus snarled. But Thomas Black Moon had been listening, had been gathering what strength he had left. As Marcus turned toward him with the syringe, the old Alpha grabbed his brother's wrist with surprising force. For 20 years, Thomas said, his voice stronger than it had been in months, I trusted you. Loved you like a brother. And you repaid that by trying to murder my family. Thomas, Marcus began. No, Thomas said firmly. You don't get to explain this away. You don't get to justify it. You betrayed everything we built together, everything our father taught us about pack and family and honor. Logan watched as his father, weak from months of poisoning but still an alpha in every way that mattered, held his brother's wrist in an unbreakable grip. Logan, Thomas said quietly. Take the syringe. Logan moved forward carefully, aware that one wrong move could still trigger the injection that would kill his father. But as he reached for the weapon, Marcus made one last desperate play. If I can't have the pack, Marcus snarled, then no one can. He twisted in Thomas's grip, trying to turn the syringe toward Lily instead. But she was ready for him. The silver light flared one final time, and Marcus Black Moon, murderer, betrayer, would-be Alpha, crumpled to the floor unconscious. In the sudden silence that followed, Logan looked from his father to Lily, his mind struggling to process everything that had just happened. So, he said finally. You're not an Omega. Lily's power faded, leaving her looking small and exhausted but still unmistakably strong. No. I'm Alpha-born. But Logan, I need you to understand, everything else was real. My feelings for your father, my feelings for you. That wasn't part of any plan. Logan studied her face, reading truth in her expression but also fear. Fear that he would reject her now that he knew what she really was. Instead, he stepped closer, close enough to cup her face in his hands. Alpha-born, he said softly. That explains why my wolf recognized you so immediately. Does it change anything? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Logan looked down at the unconscious man who had tried to destroy everything he loved, then at his father who was already looking stronger as Lily's healing powers continued to work, then back at the extraordinary woman who had saved them both. Yes, he said simply. It changes everything. Because now I know exactly why you're perfect for me. And as he kissed her, Logan felt his wolf settle with complete satisfaction. Not because he'd found an Omega to care for and protect, but because he'd found an equal. An alpha female strong enough to stand beside him, to help him lead their pack into the future. Marcus had been hunting Alexander Chen's daughter for 20 years. But what he'd found instead was the future Luna of the Black Moon pack. And she was magnificent. Chapter 4. The silver light faded from Lily's hands as Marcus hit the floor, but Logan's relief was short-lived. His uncle might be unconscious, but he was far from defeated. Even as Logan moved to secure the syringe, Marcus's eyes snapped open with the cold calculation of a predator who had survived decades of pack warfare through cunning and ruthlessness. "You always were too trusting, nephew," Marcus said, his voice steady despite having just been knocked unconscious by alpha power. From somewhere in his jacket, he produced a gun, not the kind used for hunting animals, but the specialized ammunition designed to kill shifters. Silver-tipped bullets that would tear through even an alpha's enhanced healing. Logan felt his blood turn to ice as his uncle aimed the weapon directly at his father's chest. "Step away from both of them," Marcus ordered, his voice carrying the calm authority of a man who had orchestrated the deaths of entire bloodlines. "Now." "Marcus, don't do this," Thomas said, his voice still weak from the poison but steady with the kind of courage that had made him a pack leader. "Whatever you think this will accomplish." "What this will accomplish," Marcus interrupted, "is the completion of a plan 25 years in the making." "Did you really think Logan's inheritance was ever going to be that simple? That I spent decades building this empire just to hand it over to your son?" Logan felt pieces of a much larger puzzle clicking into place. "You never intended for me to survive succession, did you?" Marcus smiled, and it was the coldest expression Logan had ever seen on a family member's face. "Bright boy. No, Logan, you were never meant to live long enough to claim your birthright. A tragic accident during the transition of power, perhaps. Or maybe a challenge from a rival pack that went wrong. There are so many ways for young alphas to die before they reach their full potential." "You bastard," Logan snarled, his wolf straining against his control. But the gun remained trained on his father, keeping him frozen in place. "Language, nephew. Though I suppose it's accurate, I am a bastard. Your grandfather's bastard son, to be precise. Never acknowledged, never given the respect or inheritance that should have been mine by rights of birth." Marcus's voice carried decades of buried resentment. "But I was patient. I built my own power base, eliminated the threats, positioned myself perfectly. All I needed was for the legitimate bloodline to die out naturally." "The other packs," Lily said quietly, and Logan heard something in her voice that made his wolf sit up and take notice. Not fear, but a cold, calculating anger that reminded him she was alpha-born. "The Silver Moon massacre wasn't random, was it? You've been systematically destroying any pack strong enough to challenge Black Moon leadership." Marcus's attention shifted to her, and Logan caught the scent of something that might have been anticipation from his uncle. "Alexander Chen's little girl. Do you know how long I've been looking for you? 22 years of hunting down survivors, making sure no one from your bloodline could ever come back to reclaim what your father built." "My father built a pack based on honor and mutual protection," Lily said, and Logan felt power beginning to gather around her again, more controlled this time but infinitely more dangerous. "You built an empire on murder and betrayal." "I built an empire that will last," Marcus corrected. "Your father's idealistic approach got him and most of his pack killed. Honor is a luxury only the strong can afford, and only the ruthless survive." Logan watched the exchange, recognizing that Marcus was revealing far more than he'd intended. This wasn't just about pack succession or business inheritance. This was about revenge against every alpha bloodline that had ever been recognized while his uncle remained in the shadows. "How many?" Logan asked quietly. "How many packs have you destroyed?" Marcus's smile widened. "Enough. The Silver Moon pack, obviously. The Crescent Ridge Alphas died in what appeared to be a car accident, 3 generations wiped out in one night. The Northwind pack succumbed to a mysterious plague that only affected shifters. Brilliant, really, using their own enhanced immune systems against them." Logan felt sick. His uncle wasn't just a murderer, he was a genocidal monster who had been systematically destroying the supernatural community for decades. "But you made one mistake," Lily said, stepping slightly closer despite the gun trained on Thomas. "You left survivors. And survivors remember." "Not for much longer," Marcus said, and Logan heard the subtle shift in his voice that indicated he was done talking and ready to act. But before Marcus could pull the trigger, Thomas spoke up with the kind of quiet authority that had made him legendary among pack leaders. "Marcus, before you kill us all, there's something you should know about your grand plan." "What's that, brother?" Marcus asked, though he didn't lower the weapon. "The Pack Council has been watching you for months. Every financial transaction, every suspicious death, every move you've made to position yourself for a takeover. Did you really think 25 years of carefully orchestrated murders would go unnoticed forever?" Marcus's confidence flickered slightly. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Thomas reached into his wheelchair side compartment with his free hand, moving slowly to avoid startling his brother. "Check your phone, Marcus. I think you'll find several missed calls from pack leaders across the country. Seems someone's been sharing information about your activities." Logan watched his uncle's face as understanding dawned. Whatever Thomas had done, it was clearly more extensive than Marcus had anticipated. "You see," his father continued, "the one thing you never understood about true pack leadership is that it's built on networks of trust and mutual support. When you started targeting other alphas, you weren't just eliminating competition, you were threatening the entire balance of power that keeps our world stable." "Impossible," Marcus snarled, but Logan could smell the uncertainty bleeding into his scent. "I covered my tracks perfectly." "You covered your tracks from human law enforcement," Lily interrupted, and Logan felt another surge of power from her, stronger this time. "But pack justice operates by different rules." As if summoned by her words, Logan heard sounds from the hallway, multiple sets of footsteps, moving with the coordinated silence of experienced hunters. The Pack Council had arrived. Marcus heard them too, and Logan watched his uncle's careful plans crumble in real time. But a cornered predator is always most dangerous. "If I'm going down," Marcus said, raising the gun to point directly at Logan's chest, "I'm taking the whole bloodline with me." Everything happened at once. Marcus's finger tightened on the trigger just as Logan threw himself forward, trusting his enhanced reflexes and healing to survive whatever damage the silver bullets might do. But Lily moved faster than either of them, power exploding from her in a way that Logan had never seen from any shifter. The bullet never reached him. Instead, it stopped in midair, suspended in a sphere of silver light that pulsed with energy so pure it made Logan's wolf howl with recognition and something that felt like worship. "Impossible," Marcus breathed, staring at Lily with something that might have been terror. "You're Omega. Omega powers can't." "I'm not just Omega," Lily said, her voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in Logan's very bones. "And I'm not just Alpha, either." The silver light intensified, and Logan felt his understanding of everything he thought he knew about shifter genetics shift fundamentally. Alpha-Omega hybrids were theoretical, the stuff of pack legends and ancient bloodline stories. They weren't supposed to exist in the modern world. But here Lily stood, power flowing around her like liquid starlight, and Logan realized he was witnessing something that hadn't been seen in generations. "The Chin bloodline," Marcus whispered, and for the first time Logan heard actual fear in his uncle's voice. "Your father never told me. He never said you carried both lines." "My father protected his pack secrets," Lily replied, stepping forward as the sphere of light containing the bullet began to compress. "Just like he protected his daughter. You killed my parents, you destroyed my home, you hunted survivors for 20 years. But you never understood what you were really hunting." The compressed energy in her hands was becoming something else now, something that made the air itself seem to sing with power. Logan's wolf was torn between the instinctive urge to submit to such overwhelming alpha authority and the equally strong urge to stand beside her as an equal. "You're going to kill me?" Marcus asked, his voice steady despite the circumstances. "No," Lily said simply. "That's not justice. That's just revenge." She gestured, and the energy sphere expanded, engulfing Marcus completely. But instead of harm, Logan watched as his uncle simply stopped. Frozen in place like a statue, conscious but unable to move or speak. Alpha-Omega hybrids don't just command through dominance or heal through submission, Lily explained, her voice returning to its normal gentle tone even as power continued to radiate from her. "We can impose perfect stasis. He'll remain like this until pack justice can be properly administered." The bedroom door opened, and Logan turned to see three figures entering, pack leaders he recognized from council meetings, their expressions grim but satisfied. Marcus Black Moon, the eldest, said formally, "You are under arrest by order of the Continental Pack Council for crimes against multiple shifter communities, including genocide, conspiracy, and attempted murder of recognized Alpha bloodlines." Logan watched as two of the council members moved to secure his frozen uncle, while the third approached Thomas with obvious relief. "Thomas, thank the moon you're safe. When we received the evidence packages." "Evidence packages?" Logan looked at his father, who was managing to look both exhausted and smugly satisfied. "Did you think I spent months recovering without putting the pieces together?" Thomas asked. "Lily may have saved my life medically, but I still knew how to investigate a conspiracy. Every suspicious death, every convenient accident, every move Marcus made to consolidate power, it's all documented and distributed to every major pack leader in North America." Logan felt a surge of pride and admiration for his father's strategic mind, even while dealing with the revelation that his mate wasn't just Alpha-born but something far rarer and more powerful. "How long have you known?" he asked Lily quietly. "About my heritage?" "Always." "About yours?" She smiled, and Logan saw both the gentle Omega caregiver and the powerful hybrid Alpha in her expression. "Since the moment I scented you in that elevator. Alpha-Omega hybrids don't just recognize our mates, we're literally designed to complement them." "Designed by who?" "Evolution. The moon goddess. Fate. Does it matter?" Lily moved closer to him, and Logan caught a scent from her that made his wolf go completely still. "What matters is that we're here, we survived, and we have a future to build." That scent, sweet and warm and utterly familiar, but with an undertone that Logan's enhanced senses recognized even before his logical mind processed what it meant. "Lily," he said quietly, his voice rough with sudden emotion. "I know," she said, placing her hand over her still flat stomach. "I've known for 3 weeks." Logan felt the world rearrange itself around him. Their one night together. The full moon encounter when his careful control had finally snapped and he'd claimed her with a desperate hunger that had left them both changed, had created more than just a bond between them. The night after Marcus first tried to increase the poison dosage, Logan said, remembering. "When I found you crying over my father's bedside, certain he was going to die. When you held me and told me everything would be okay," Lily finished. "When your wolf finally recognized mine completely." "A baby," Logan breathed, the reality of it hitting him like a physical force. "Our baby. Due under the winter solstice moon," Lily said, and Logan heard the quiet joy in her voice. "The perfect time for new beginnings." Behind them, the Pack Council was finishing their business with Marcus, preparing to transport him to a secure location where he would face formal trial. Thomas was being examined by a pack healer who had arrived with the council, his health already showing remarkable improvement now that the poisoning had been stopped. But Logan's attention was focused entirely on the woman in front of him, his mate, his equal, the future mother of his child, and apparently one of the rarest and most powerful shifters in existence. "Alpha-Omega hybrid," he said, still processing the magnitude of what that meant. "I've never heard of one being documented in modern times." "Because we're hunted," Lily said simply. "Too powerful for most alphas to control, too threatening to traditional pack structures. My parents hid what I was even from our own pack. Only they knew the truth. And now Marcus is neutralized, your bloodline is safe, and you're free to be what you really are." "What we really are," Lily corrected, taking his hands. "Because this isn't just about me, Logan. A hybrid's power is only fully realized when bonded with a true alpha mate. We're stronger together than either of us could ever be alone." Logan felt the truth of that in his bones, in the way his wolf had settled completely for the first time in his adult life, in the sense of rightness that filled him whenever Lily was near. "The pack," he said suddenly. "How are they going to react when they find out their future Luna is more powerful than most alphas?" Lily smiled, and Logan saw ancient wisdom in her young eyes. "The same way they'll react when they find out their alpha chose love over power, family over empire, and trust over control. With respect, if you lead by example." 6 months later. Logan stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his office, watching the sun set over the city that housed both Black Moon Industries' corporate headquarters and the territory of one of the most powerful shifter packs in North America. In the distance, he could see the construction crews working on the new community center, a project that would serve both the human and shifter populations, breaking down barriers that had existed for generations. The quarterly reports are all positive, his father said from the conference table, where he was reviewing documents with the energy and focus of a man in perfect health. The antidotes Lily had developed had not only counteracted Marcus's poisoning but had actually improved Thomas's overall condition. Profits are up 18%, community relations are at an all-time high, and we've successfully integrated the territories of 3 smaller packs who requested Black Moon protection after Marcus's trial. Logan nodded, only half listening to the business update. His attention was focused on the woman sitting across from his father, her hands resting protectively over the pronounced curve of her belly. 7 months pregnant and still attending pack council meetings, still helping to oversee the integration of refugee shifters from packs Marcus had destroyed, still working tirelessly to build bridges between communities that had been isolated by decades of fear and mistrust. The Riverside Pack has agreed to the Mutual Defense Treaty, Lily said, looking up from her own stack of documents. That brings us to 12 allied packs across 6 states. The Council is calling it the most successful interpack cooperation initiative in over a century. All because you convinced them that strength comes from unity rather than dominance, Logan said, moving away from the window to sit beside her. We convinced them, Lily corrected, leaning into his side with a soft sigh of contentment. Though I think the baby helped. Something about the prospect of a new generation that bridges different bloodlines has everyone feeling optimistic about the future. Logan placed his hand over hers on her belly, feeling the strong, steady kicks of their unborn child. The baby was active during pack meetings, as if already eager to be part of the family business. Any word from the tribunal? Thomas asked, and Logan knew he was referring to Marcus's ongoing trial before the Continental Pack Council. Full confession and cooperation in exchange for life imprisonment instead of execution, Logan said grimly. He's provided information about 17 different pack killings over the past 25 years, plus financial records of bribes and corruption throughout the shifter community. The council is calling it the most comprehensive exposure of interpack crime in history. Justice served, Lily said quietly. And the survivor families finally have answers about what happened to their loved ones. Logan studied his mate's profile, seeing the satisfaction but also the sadness in her expression. Marcus's confession had confirmed the deaths of extended family members Lily had hoped might have survived, but it had also provided closure that had been denied for over 2 decades. No regrets about the choice to show mercy instead of executing him? Logan asked. None, Lily said firmly. Alpha power isn't about who you can destroy, it's about what you choose to protect and build. Marcus spent decades tearing down what others created. We're going to spend the rest of our lives doing the opposite. A knock at the office door interrupted them, and Logan called for entry. His assistant appeared with a man Logan didn't immediately recognize, elderly, with the bearing of someone accustomed to authority, but carrying sense that marked him as from a distant pack. Alpha Black Moon, the stranger said formally, I'm Samuel Riverwind, representing the Northwest Territories Pack Council. We've traveled a long way to speak with you and your mate. Logan felt Lily tense beside him, her protective instincts on high alert. Visits from distant pack leaders usually meant either very good news or very serious problems. Please, sit, Thomas said, gesturing to the open chairs around the conference table. What brings you so far from home? Samuel's eyes moved to Lily, and Logan caught a scent of something that might have been awe mixed with deep respect. We come seeking alliance, but also to pay respects to the last of the Chen bloodline. Lily straightened, her hand moving instinctively to her belly. You knew my family? Your father saved my pack when I was barely old enough to hunt, Samuel said, his voice carrying the reverence of someone speaking of legends. Alexander Chen was the most honorable alpha I've ever known, and when we heard that his daughter not only survived but had bonded with the Black Moon heir. He shook his head in what looked like amazement. The old prophecies speak of times when the bloodlines would unite to heal the divisions between packs. Prophecies? Logan asked, feeling like he was constantly discovering new layers to his mate's heritage. Ancient stories about hybrid children who would bridge the gaps between Alpha and Omega, between different pack territories, between the human and shifter worlds, Samuel explained. Most of us thought they were just stories. But looking at what you two have accomplished in just 6 months. He gestured toward the reports scattered across the conference table, the maps showing new alliance territories, the photographs of the community integration projects. You're creating something that hasn't existed since the early days of pack formation, Samuel continued. True unity based on mutual strength rather than dominance hierarchies. Logan felt Lily's hand squeeze his as their child kicked particularly strongly, as if responding to the discussion of their future role in the shifter world. The Northwest Territories would like to formally request inclusion in your alliance, Samuel said. And we'd like to offer something in return, protection and sanctuary for any other survivors from the packs Marcus destroyed. We've been quietly gathering them for years, but now that there's a safe haven. Yes, Lily said immediately, and Logan felt his chest warm with pride at her instant compassion. Of course. Anyone who needs sanctuary is welcome under Black Moon protection. There are conditions, Logan added, his business instincts still functioning even in the face of such generosity. Full disclosure about any past conflicts, agreement to our mutual defense treaties, and commitment to the integration principles we've established. Agreed, Samuel said without hesitation. Alpha Black Moon, Luna Chen Black Moon, you're offering something that seemed impossible just a year ago, a future where packs can thrive together instead of merely surviving separately. After Samuel left with promises to return within the month with formal alliance documents, Logan found himself alone with Lily and his father in the quiet office as evening settled over the city. Luna Chen Blackman, Logan said, testing the formal title. I like the sound of that. I like the sound of Alpha and Luna Black Moon, Lily replied, her hand moving in slow circles over her belly. Though I think our little one is going to have some very big shoes to fill. Speaking of which, Thomas said, closing his laptop with the satisfied air of someone who had successfully managed a complex day of pack politics, have you two given any more thought to names? Logan and Lily exchanged glances. They'd been so focused on building their alliance, managing the business, and preparing for pack leadership that they'd barely discussed the more personal aspects of impending parenthood. Something that honors both bloodlines, Lily said thoughtfully. Alexander for my father, maybe. Or Diana for your mother. What about something completely new? Logan suggested. A name that represents what we're building rather than what we've lost. Before Lily could respond, she gasped, her hand flying to her belly as her face went pale. What is it? Logan was on his feet instantly, his alpha instincts shifting into protective overdrive. I think. Lily breathed, her eyes wide with a mixture of surprise and something that looked like anticipation. I think our baby has opinions about this conversation. Logan felt his world narrow to the woman in front of him, to the life they'd created together, to the future that was apparently arriving ahead of schedule. Now? He asked, his voice higher than he'd intended. Now, Lily confirmed, her voice steady despite the obvious discomfort. Luna births under the full moon, remember? And tonight. Logan looked out the window at the perfectly round moon rising over the city, bathing everything in silver light that seemed to pulse in rhythm with his own heartbeat. Tonight, he finished, understanding flooding through him. As they prepared to welcome their child into the world, the baby who would represent a new beginning for both their bloodlines and the entire shifter community, Logan felt his wolf settle with complete and perfect contentment. He'd started this journey as a ruthless alpha CEO focused solely on protecting his empire. But he was ending it as something far more important, a mate, a father, and a leader who understood that true strength came not from domination, but from the bonds of love and trust that could unite even the most disparate packs into something greater than the sum of their parts. The Black Moon pack was stronger than ever. And their greatest adventures were just beginning. The end. Thank you for listening to this story. Like, share and subscribe for more.